This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
We have the latest updates on the COVID-19 outbreak from around the world. Security concerns mount as African countries prepare to withdraw troops from Somalia. And Malawi legalizes cultivation of cannabis for medicinal and industrial use. Hello and welcome to Africa Live. As always, great to have you with us. I'm RIchard Nta, live in Nairobi. And for those of you joining us from around the continent and around the globe, we thank you for joining us. And tonight, I'm alongside my colleague, Rama Yang, who has our business headlines. Rama.
That's right, Richard. Here's what's coming up in the course of the hour. South Africa to lose tariff revenues and about $4.5 billion worth of imports once the Continental Free Trade Area starts. And we'll introduce you to a Nigerian farmer who seems to have found a sweet spot in bee cultivation. We'll have the details on those stories and lots more from the markets in the course of the hour. For now, let's start with the latest in current affairs with Richard.
Thanks a lot, Rama. Once again, welcome to Africa Live. We begin with the latest on the COVID-19 outbreak, which has been reported on all continents except Antarctica. In China, over 300 new cases were reported on Thursday, a record low for February. The majority of new infections are in Hubei province, where the outbreak began. China's total number of infections now stands at close to 79,000 cases. About 46% have recovered, while more than 2,700 have died. Guangdong, Zhejiang, and Henan are the next worst hit provinces. Each has more than 1,200 cases. Besides China, 51 countries have reported a total of over 4,900 cases. South Korea has confirmed over 2,000 infections, including 300 new cases. Italy has the largest tally outside Asia with over 600 cases. Japan has more than 900 cases. Iran is the worst hit country in the Middle East, with the most number of deaths outside of China at 34. And Nigeria has confirmed its first case of COVID-19 in the commercial capital, Lagos. This marks the first case in sub-Saharan Africa. Here's CGTN's Kelechi Mekalam reporting from Lagos.
Nigeria's Health Minister Osage Hanire, who spoke with newsmen here in Abuja, confirmed that the case involves an Italian man who flew in from Milan on February the 25th. He was diagnosed with COVID-19 on Thursday the 27th. The patient, whose identity is concealed based on standard protocol, has been isolated.
The patient is clinically stable with no serious symptoms and is being managed at the Infectious Disease Hospital in Yaba, Lagos.
Authorities are also working with the airline to track and monitor all persons who have been in contact with the index case.
We have started working to identify all the contacts of the patient since he entered Nigeria, and even those who were with him on the aircraft.
Since the global outbreak of the virus in China, Nigeria has beefed up response and control measures, and some of those measures include the setting up of 4 laboratories across the country, capacity building for port health workers, and purchasing more reagents for testing. China has already sent through a treatment protocol to Nigeria. For now, authorities are saying there's no need for a city lockdown, as government has gathered enough information to handle the virus. The minister says Nigeria will continue to follow WHO's guideline for all travelers. Statistics show that up to 97% of people known to have the virus do recover. Health officials here advise citizens to remain calm and follow personal hygiene and health routines. Kelechi Mekalam, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria.
All right, for more on this story, we are now joined by Deji Badmus, who is in Lagos. Deji, thank you for joining us here on Africa Live. Let me begin by asking you, what more do we know about the confirmed COVID-19 case in Lagos, and how are authorities handling the situation?
Well, Richard, we now have a clear idea of how this individual came in. It's now been confirmed that this Italian citizen actually came into the country on Monday, checked into a hotel close to the airport and stayed in that hotel. Then the next day he moved from the hotel to a neighboring state known as Ogun, very close to Lagos State, where he went to a company there where he worked. And after working at the company, he now left for the company's guest house where he passed the night. It was at the company's guest house that he actually came down with a high fever, and then he was taken to the health facility of that company, and from there he was referred to the Lagos University Teaching Hospital where the coronavirus was actually confirmed. And what the health authorities are now doing is to go back to where he started from. I'm talking from the airport now. There's going to be contact tracing, just as Kelechi said. What the health authorities are going to do is to try and find out all the people he came in contact with. Now, that is actually not going to be easy at all, because they will be talking to the airlines, talking to the hotel where he slept. They'll be talking to the company where he worked and the people he came in contact with. The authorities have actually started that, and they are hopeful that, well, with time, they'll be able to get everyone in. The whole idea is that they want to break the cycle of any possible transmission at all. So, and that's the way they're handling it. The authorities are telling people not to panic at all. So there's no sense of panic, so to speak. And the good thing, Richard, is that before now, people, the awareness level about this virus has been high. So it's high because people had been following developments, not just in China, but everywhere where this virus has actually been reported. So the awareness level is high. As soon as it was reported that Nigeria had that case, a lot of people, you know, we saw people now on the streets wearing masks and, you know, buying hand sanitizers and what have you. So, but the authorities now are urging people to remain calm, not to panic, and that the situation is firmly under control.
Well, Deji, let me pick up on what you've just said. Authorities are urging people not to panic. That brings me to my next question. How are people in Nigeria reacting to this news, and how are they protecting themselves? Go into detail about that, Deji.
Yeah, now, Richard, I should say this. People are actually not surprised that, you know, COVID-19 is now here. It's something that people had been prepared for. The government had actually conditioned people to know that, look, this could happen. You have a high volume of passenger traffic in Nigeria, a lot of people coming from all over the world to Nigeria. So that possibility had been there, so there's no surprise at all. So people are prepared. And the good thing, as I said, is the awareness level is high. And what the government has now decided to do is to intensify that awareness level. The government, for instance, says it will run jingles on radio, TV, in different languages, and try to reach people even in remote areas to make sure that, you know, the awareness level is higher and that people are better enlightened about the virus and how it can be contracted. And let me just say this, Richard, as we speak now, you know, masks are fast disappearing off the shelf of pharmaceutical stores, and especially here in Lagos. Hand sanitizers, the price of hand sanitizers are actually going up. Same thing as the mask. It's a clear indication that, look, people really understand, and because they've been following the news in other parts of the world, so very quickly people know what to do. But then the government is not taking things for granted. Health officials and health authorities here are still providing further education. One of the big problems that the country will have to deal with, and the good thing is that Facebook, for instance, has said is going to cooperate with Nigeria to deal with the problem of misinformation and disinformation. So that is one area that the government may have to struggle with. But, well, it appears it is prepared, and people on their own are actually running campaigns, asking people not to carry misinformation, not to disinform people, to make sure that they listen to the health authorities and go by what, the advisory now that the health authorities will be releasing. So there's no sense of panic, so to speak, and people are just hopeful that, you know, things actually don't spiral out of control. Richard?
All right, Deji Badmus, let's leave it there for now. I would like to thank you so much for your insight and analysis. That's our correspondent, Deji Badmus, talking to us live from Lagos. Moving on, in China, officials say the epidemic in Hubei province is under control in cities other than Wuhan. They say most new confirmed cases are from already suspected cases. However, according to authorities, the situation is still complicated and dire with large-scale movement as people return to work. Officials report that there have been no deaths in the temporary hospital. CGTN's reporter Zhao Yunfei asked authorities about the World Health Organization's inspection tour of China.
中国政府采取了果断的措施，也就是对它实
Chinese
行围
government
堵
took
围
the
堵的
most
这个战略
stringent
措施。
and effective manners, which means we do
可以说
everything
这
to
种
cut
果断
off
的
the
措施
spread of the virus.
短时间内，也
This
就短短的
vigorous
7周之
action,
内，
just within a
取得了
short
明显
time
的成
period,
效。
7 weeks,
遏制
produced
了
a positive
这个疫
effect.
情
We
流行的态
effectively
势，
curb the
挽救
further spreading of
数
the
十万
disease
人的
and saved
生命
tens
健
of
康，
thousands of people's lives,
也为世界的疫情防控
which
筑起
also
了第一道的防线。
established
所
the
以中国政
first
府所采取的这种措施
defense lines
策略
for the whole world to save
既果
people's
断
life and health.
也正确
We believe our
更有
decisions
效。
are
这是第
correct,
一个影响。
effective,
第
and
二个影
vigorous.
响
Italy has reported 122 new cases of COVID-19, bringing the total to 650. 17 people have died. Some towns in the hard-hit Lombardy area are under lockdown. CGTN's Natalie Carney reports from Milan.
Well, the numbers certainly have surged here in Italy over the last 24 hours. We are now hearing that over 600 people have contracted COVID-19. It all is becoming quite a political game at the moment as well, with the central government blaming the government here in Lombardy, the area that's been most affected, for not testing as per international standards, which say people should only be tested if they're exhibiting symptoms. Lombardia has been taking it one step further, testing people who have been in contact with those that have tested positive. The WHO blames Lombardy for creating an inflated perception, Rome saying it is making the country look worse off than it is. Scientists, however, argue that tracking even mild cases is essential to containing the spread. Walter Ricciardi is a WHO advisor to the Italian Ministry of Health.
I'd like to clear this up because it's generating some confusion. We have decided that the definition of a case has to be made by the National Institute of Health, because what happens is that the regional laboratories do this test, which is now being perfected, but still has enormous room for improvement and can give false positives.
On Thursday, it is said that the Lombardy government has bowed and will now only test people that are showing symptoms. But again, experts are stepping forward, saying that no, this is a virus that in some can carry no symptoms. Natalie Carney for CGTN in Milan.
South Korea has reported nearly 600 new infections. Some countries have imposed travel restrictions on South Korean nationals. Our correspondent Joseph Kim has the latest from Seoul.
The country reporting another death, meaning that there's been 14 deaths as a tie to the coronavirus. There's also been one reported discharge after the patient had recovered. So it does seem that even though recovery has been slowly but surely, there are people who are recovering from that virus here. Now, the spread of the coronavirus is hitting all parts of South Korea, including the military, which reported 2 more cases, as well as the country's businesses, as Hyundai Motors, which is the country's biggest automaker here, had to suspend one of its plants in the southeastern part of the country after one of its employees was diagnosed with the new coronavirus. However, we're seeing that the main surge of infections is coming from Daegu, the southeastern part of the country, where more than 500 of the newly reported 600 cases were from. And so it does look like South Korea's efforts are concentrated there, including maximum quarantine steps, which they say explicitly is not a lockdown or a blockade. The anxiety is also growing here in South Korea. A big problem is that Korea's CDC says that the number of infections, the peak number, is nowhere in sight because of how rapidly this number is rising. Because of this, we're seeing that resources and capacities are starting to reach its limits. As I previously reported, there aren't enough masks or hospital beds. We did talk to some people on the street. Here's what they had to say.
Of course, I'm worried because there are not enough masks, but I'm still thankful because we can at least get our hands on these.
We have about 20 face masks at home, but I'm worried if this virus continues for a long time. And I have children, so I'm more worried. I came here to buy more face masks with my daughter.
The government said it will reduce exports of face masks abroad, and
The check before they arrived here in Kenya. For example, when they leave the living community, they have the temperature check. Oh, as we know, I'm not an expert, but I know the two main symptoms of this infection. One is high temperature. The second is the cough. Cough you can watch, right? You can notice. But for temperature is the main measure to check. So first, when they leave their living community, they get the temperature check, and then they take the public transport between cities. They have another step to check. I mean the temperature check, and then when they arrived at the airport, the departure hall, again, the temperature check, and before departure, before boarding, once again, and also on the plane. As we required, actually it had been always happening. The plane had been equipped with the medical supplies and sanitizing supplies all the way. And when they arrived here in Kenya, as far as I know, so 3 steps of the temperature check will be done for the passengers. We are keeping very close contact with the Kenya government, especially the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Well, we, for example, just now we talked about the passengers, the plane of the passenger. Actually, for your government, your immigration knows all the list of the passengers, and also we have the list of Chinese national on this plane. But under the premise of protection of the privacy, we, because we have the direct contact with the with the Chinese national here, we exchange information. If if there are any cases or suspicious cases reported.
Nick and Tamima, first of all, last time I was here, I was speaking to my civic duty, and I was quite radical. You know, I'm a radical left politician.
Okay.
And at the same time, I was criticizing the Chinese government and the lifestyle and other stuff, but I was also sympathetic last time with the Chinese people. You remember when Kenya is part of the global order, we are part of the global community. We've called the community of nations, and therefore we should be naturally sympathetic to the Chinese for the epidemic that is happening in their country. Secondly, since we adopted the policy of look east, as Beatrice has said, the trade between Kenya and China is increasing compared to any other country in the world. Therefore, we cannot avoid movement of people and goods from China to Kenya and vice versa. Therefore, it is something that when you are asking the question about self-quarantining for the people who came in Kenya, it is a question that is speaking to the fears among Kenyans that if somebody who is tested positive comes in, and then this person, maybe by accident, of course, the disease is spreading at a very fast rate. Then it infects and it spreads. What is the state of preparedness of the country to handle such cases of emergency? And this is something that we discussed at length last time when we had this discussion. So I think basically it is an issue that is speaking to the fear among Kenyans and whether the government is prepared. But I like the fact that he has mentioned about the issues of the test and the various issues that are being, the procedures before boarding, something that is very important. I want to emphasize that the government should be able to come up with its own screening at the points of entry, the ports of entry, across the country, especially through the main airport in JKIA. That is the only way. But the issue of self-quarantining cannot work best before the government itself puts the screening mechanism at the points of entry. In fact, if we had capacity, the Kenyan government should have sent the expertise. It's only that we don't have those kind of expertise because this is a new disease that has come out. Just like Ebola, we should have even sent expertise to go and assist the Chinese. I think it's something that we need to ponder.
The information is out there. We have information from the World Health Organization. We have information from Chinese authorities who issue daily pressers, who issue daily updates. Today we were told about the number of people in total who have been infected. We are seeing a total openness, right? But it is the age of social media, you know, and so in this age of social media, sometimes by the time a story gets to a certain level, it has completely metamorphosized and changed. So we want to use data to open minds. So let's use data to open minds here. Now, globalization. We start with globalization. Globalization is a phenomenon now. You know, there's a lot of movement from here to China, from China to Africa. The African Union itself estimates that there are 600% flight increases over the last 10 years as a result of the trade that Africa does with China. So the world is moving, the globe is moving, trade has to continue, people have to move. You're asking, was this a right move by China? Absolutely. The World Health Organization itself, and it is both China and Kenya, the World Health Organization itself has said that there is no need for restriction of flights. Think about it. It is not time for isolation. It is time for solidarity. If we are all, as a global audience, if we are to kick the epidemic, we must stand together in solidarity, not isolating, not saying we cannot go there or they cannot come here. And I'll pose this question to you as well. How would you feel about the Africans who are constantly locked out of Europe and, you know, have to go through the Mediterranean Sea to reach the other end? Thousands are dying each year as a result. So I say it is time for solidarity. It is not time for isolation.
You're watching Africa Live on CGT, and we'll see you on the other side of the break with a lot more stories, including security concerns mount as African countries prepare to withdraw troops from Somalia. And Malawi legalizes cultivation of cannabis for medicinal and industrial use.
You don't find the stories of North Africa by sitting on the sidelines.
You've got to get out, go there, and you'll find them. In the bazaars of Casablanca, among the crowds in Cairo,
who come to visit Cairo, the ancient capital of Egypt.
along the waters of the Nile, along the sands of the Sahara. No one else will take you where we can in North Africa. No one else will show you what it's all about. CGTN, see the difference.
Welcome back to Somalia now, where security remains the biggest concern as African Union troops continue with a planned troop drawdown in the country. An attack earlier this month on an army base raised concerns of just how prepared authorities are to take over security responsibilities from AMISOM. CGTN's Abdulaziz Billo reports from Mogadishu.
AMISOM Force Commander is touring army positions along the border between Somalia and Kenya. The multinational peacekeeping force is implementing a directive by the UN Security Council that seeks a reduction in the number of African Union troops assisting Somalia in ending decades-long Al-Shabaab's insurgency.
The main agenda is drawdown. Based on the UN Security Council resolution 2019, already they decided 1,000 drawdown. How we conduct the general security situation and the next future operation. All sectors, we have clear how we conduct the next operation.
Under an agreed plan endorsed by the international community, AMISOM is required to conduct gradual handover to Somali forces, conduct offensives, secure main supply routes, and reduce the threat posed by the militant group.
You do not want the sacrifices that has been made to be fruitless. Locations that we recovered 7 years, 10 years ago, you don't want to hand over to Al-Shabaab easily. But I think it will not get to that because of our strong partnership. AMISOM and federal government have made a lot of progress in this area, and we have been working together in a very smooth way.
African Union mission to the country says the plan is in motion, and the reduction was done during troop rotation. All AMISOM troop contributing countries reduced the number of soldiers on the ground. The force spokesperson says that all forward operating bases are intact and no vacuum was created. The country's army has been effective in capturing and holding towns in recent years, but an attack earlier this month on an army base in the lower Shabelle region has raised concerns on Somalia's ability to go it alone.
And El Salini is the only and one of the few bases that the Somali forces are holding on ground. But unfortunately, they have been receiving very serious assaults and lost a lot of soldiers and morale. So I think El Salini could be the case, the test case for Somalia to prove that the exit AMISOM is possible or not.
A major push is underway in the Middle Juba region as Jubaland forces, backed by the National Army and US aerial firepower, has reduced Al-Shabaab's capability to mount deadly attacks. Analysts, however, warn that tough measures must be put in place to ensure hard-won gains are not reversed. Abdulaziz Billo, CGTN, Mogadishu, Somalia.
And Malawi has become the latest country in southern Africa to relax laws against growing and selling of cannabis. The amendment now makes it legal for cannabis to be used in the production of medicine, while the hemp fiber can be used for industry. However, the bill, which was passed on Thursday, still prohibits recreational use of marijuana. Malawi joins a growing number of countries relaxing laws on the use of cannabis as perception toward the plant changes. South Africa, Zimbabwe, Lesotho, and Zambia are some of the countries in the region that have already passed similar laws. The World Health Organization says the chronic viral hepatitis affects over 70 million people in Africa. Despite the availability of diagnostic tools, around 90% of Africans lack much needed care. As a result, at least 200,000 people die annually. Recently, the African Union ratified a 2019 declaration on viral hepatitis in Africa in a bid to address the disease more effectively. African leaders have agreed to ensure the inclusion of hepatitis programs in their national health plans. CGTN's Coletta Wanjoy spoke to a healthcare company working with countries on the continent to tackle the disease.
We're trying all our best to partner with the government and private sectors and everyone, and to do most of the awareness, which is we can talk about it. In Egypt, the government did screening for over 60 million, 70 million, and 6 months to 7 months we screen everything with them. So, and we save life of 2 million population in Egypt. This is, I believe it's a milestone. Even in Uganda, we're working on a different program for hepatitis in Rwanda. So we are moving fast. Niger are in the spot and they are working a lot for their people. In Mali, the same.
Do you think there's enough awareness amongst the citizenry about hepatitis? Viral?
If you see this year in 2020, the focus in hepatitis, so the awareness is really strong. And if we look today from my meeting and my observation, I can see most of the government, they know exactly their data and they know how much they want to screen. And also in the future, the only way we need to start with the diagnosis, testing, to know how many persons we have, and then we can know how many we need to treat. So it goes by phases. So now the government knows exactly, let's say, in different countries, we're not going to name now, they know exactly how many they need to screen and approximately, let's say, how many they need treatment.
And what are some of the challenges that the continent is facing as you move around?
Of course, it's the funding. This is the most challenging, I think, the most country. Global Fund are supporting, like HIV, all of us, we know. And of course, in the future, we can see there is a light coming that the Global Fund, they're gonna support this as HIV with the hepatitis B. So they can only support this if it's someone has HIV plus hepatitis B, then they will support from there. And the government, they are working on a different funds to screen their people. Also to really have the screening in a way to reach all over the country. Like not, we can start with the big states, that's no problem. All of us, we can do it. But the most important for me as a person is to reach every village, the remote area. Those are the people, we have to start from them and then we go inside. I believe that's the best way, and we've done it in different places. I think that's the best pilot to move in with.
In Somalia, locust invasions continue to cause havoc. Somalia was the first country to be hit by the devastating pests that are now plaguing many East African countries. CGTN's Abdulaziz Billah reports from Mogadishu on the effect of the desert locust infestation and government's efforts to combat it.
Alul Abdi is inspecting her farm on the outskirts of Beledweyne in central Somalia. In December, a swarm of locusts destroyed crops in her farm and many others across much of the country, as a locust invasion continues to cause concern in most East African countries.
A swarm of locusts ate all our crops. All the cost, maintenance, and a month's hard work went in vain. Tomatoes, oranges, maize, beans, all destroyed. We are appealing for assistance from all parties in order to tackle the locusts before the harvest season.
Not far from Lul's farm, we meet Qasim Abdi, who is concerned of a possible infestation by desert locusts that left behind millions of eggs from the previous wave.
Last year, flood waters destroyed our farms and seedlings. After flood water subsided and we planted again, locusts invaded our farms and ate all the crops we planted, including maize, pepper, and sesame. We are going to plant again, but we are extremely worried.
Somalia became the East African state to declare a national emergency over a locust upsurge which is spreading in the East African region and beyond. Experts say locust poses a major threat to the country's already fragile food security situation. Mogadishu says it has put in place mechanisms to ensure a possible second wave doesn't cause much damage to farmers and pastoral communities.
In the near future, we're expecting the arrival of high-tech equipment, better than the manual ones we've been using. Some will be portable, mounted on vehicles. We are also expecting aircrafts to spray and reduce the impact of desert locust infestation.
Earlier this month, officials from the UN's Food and Agriculture Organization appealed for up to $76 million to address the crisis in Kenya, Somalia, and Ethiopia.
If the locust does hit cropping areas or grazing areas at the worst time, the damages can be huge, up to 100%. We are appealing jointly for funding. This is not just a problem for Somalia, it's a problem for the region. So what we do in Somalia benefits to the neighboring country and vice versa.
Somalia recently joined the Desert Locust Control Organization. It's now hoping to receive technical assistance as it battles its worst locust invasion in decades. Abdul Aziz Bilo, CGTN, Mogadishu, Somalia.
And the news continues on Africa Live. We've got your business news up next with Rama Nyang. Rama.
Yes, indeed, Richard. Here's what's coming up in business. South Africa to give up tariff revenues on $4.5 billion of imports once the CFTA kicks in. And a Nigerian farmer finds a sweet spot in beekeeping.
眼睛是心灵的窗户，每一个人都是特别珍惜自己的眼睛的。
maze kumenya nyine ko igisho ryahumye nkiri muto kandi ntishoboye.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back. Analysts are warning that the impact of the coronavirus outbreak on financial markets will likely persist right into the second quarter of 2020. Now, this outbreak could see the global economy, in fact, slide into recession if matters do get worse. The effect of this outbreak on companies in their tightly interlinked supply chains around the world has sent equity markets in Asia, Europe, and the United States crashing yet again on Friday. And that has compounded their worst week since the 2008 global financial crisis and wiped out roughly $5 trillion of value across equities. Now, hopes that the epidemic would be over in months and that economic activity would then quickly resume have been shattered as a number of international cases, especially outside China, continues to rise. Disruptions in international travel and supply chains, school closures and cancellations of major events have all blackened the outlook for a world economy that was already struggling to adapt to the fallout from the Sino-American trade war.
Yes, we're seeing some signs of this, but they've been in isolated places so far. Once it's widespread, those risks are widespread. What I'm concerned about now is this is a global natural disaster. It's unforeseen. It's something that can't be controlled. It's even difficult to contain this, let alone try to control this. So I see problems with business confidence, whether businesses can really meet their demands, their obligations when it comes to paying staff, you know, the other financing terms, supply, you know, what's happening to their productivity.
The International Monetary Fund is likely to downgrade its growth forecast as a result of this coronavirus outbreak, which now has affected 51 countries around the world. A spokesman for the fund says he expects a decision on how to respond to the impact of this COVID-19 outbreak ahead of the IMF and World Bank spring meetings in April. IMF officials are considering either scaling back the size of the meetings or instead holding them by teleconference.
We are looking at this as we speak. We are considering various options. The institutions, both institutions, have well-developed contingency plans. And we're confident that whatever the format of the spring meetings would be, that we will have effective meetings, we will have successful meetings in the sense of having that exchange of views and dialogue with our membership. I don't have a decision on that format for you today. It's under active review, as I've just said, and I expect the decision soon. We are likely to downgrade our growth projections for the world in the World Economic Outlook in April. Kristalina Georgieva has already said that, if you saw her statement at the weekend. I do not have another number for you today, but clearly the virus is going to have an impact on growth.
Now, in China itself, the coronavirus epidemic has prompted people to embrace new lifestyle and business trends. While residents in the capital, Beijing, are trying to stay at home as much as they can, shopping malls are getting help maintaining their customer bases from online platforms.
Joy City is one of the most successful shopping mall chains in Beijing, with annual sales of 4 billion yuan, or $570 million US. But the epidemic has brought down expectations for the first quarter. To help retail stores weather the impacts, the mall has paced up its online retail campaign.
We did a poll and find people still have rigid demands, so we have customized online projects for different types of stores, like posting sales messages on WeChat groups or using influencer marketing to promote new products.
Beauty brands and clothing shops can reach younger customers through the mall's social media accounts.
We invite beauty bloggers and our own consultants to give makeup tips. The last time we live streamed, there were about 5,000 viewers. It was quite a surprise. To remedy sales loss, we use WeChat and TikTok to display new clothes and post sales activities.
The mall also gives food safety endorsement to food stores. Restaurant owners say although takeout platforms also have strict requirements, the mall's double endorsement can win them extra credit.
Restaurants have to pass the mall's sanitation tests before they can take online orders. The mall will inspect the kitchens and check our staff 4 times a day.
Like Joy City, many other shopping malls in Beijing have been trying to combine online and offline business for years. But does that mean traditional malls are shifting focus to e-commerce?
All these online retail projects doesn't mean we want to virtualize physical stores. We want to break down the walls between online and offline scenarios and to increase customer viscosity. This has been our business philosophy all along.
CGTN, Beijing.
Now, South Africa is risking forfeiting tariffs on about $4.5 billion worth of trade when the continent-wide free trade arrangement kicks in, essentially in the second half of the year. The country's tax commissioner says imports worth about $4.5 billion or so come in from outside the duty-free Southern African Customs Union and the Southern African Development Community. The 28 African states that have ratified the CFTA treaty so far are working on eliminating or lowering tariffs on about 90% of goods ahead of that date. Now, the deal covers a market of about 1.2 billion people with a combined GDP of $2.5 trillion US. Due to its diverse uses, honey consumption around the world tends to be pretty large. An estimated 1.87 million tons of honey was produced in 2017, but supply is often well short of demand. The African continent is a fractional player at best on the global market. It accounted for barely 0.5% of global exports in that year. CGTN's Kelechi Emekalam now explores how one of Nigeria's largest bee farms aims to change this.
This is one of Nigeria's largest bee farms located in north-central Plateau State. It's owned by 40-year-old Ilia Musa, one of the foremost bee farmers in the country. He ventured into this subsector about 20 years ago with a capital of less than $8. Now the business is worth $2 million and currently employs over 6 graduates.
Today, honestly, I can tell you that we achieved a lot. Today, the business we have up to official vehicles, so to say, and we have a locally fabricated honey processing machine. We have up to 250 Kenyan top hives, and as a matter of fact, we are even building our permanent site.
Well, our progress is that we are working every day with new demands, and our market is growing. That is a big motivating factor in this business.
Beekeeping is not a prominent trade in Nigeria, despite its profitability. But Ilya has been raising the interest of many young entrepreneurs here. Now he's pushing the boundaries far beyond honey production and other byproducts.
We extract royal jelly, we extract bee pollen, we extract propolis, and we are working on giving apitherapy. That's we take the live bee to sting you. It boosts up your immune system for those that they have arthritis. Honestly, it's just like acupuncture.
There's a global growing demand for bee products. The global monetary value of trade in honey alone stands at about $4.5 million. Nigeria is yet to fully explore the potential in beekeeping. Honey and other byproducts from hive could generate at least $10 billion annually for the country. But farmers like Ilya generally face hurdles of infrastructure and funding in the business. With government's diversification efforts, there are hopes that the budding industry would develop for exports. Kelechi Amekalam, CGTN, Plateau, Nigeria.
I'll be there for the time being, but I'll be back at the top of the hour. We'll be looking at financial markets around the world. They do continue to fall as more coronavirus cases are reported outside China. The FTSE 100 over 4% lower in today's session at one point, about 13% in the red so far in the year. Top 14 South Africa, worst trading week since 2001. Kenya's NSE 20, no different. It's at a new 11-year low. We'll have the latest from the markets live on Global Business at 1800 GMT. See you then. For now, back to Richard.
Thanks a lot, Rama. And we are not done just yet. We've got your sports news coming up after the break. Here's a look at that headline. We speak to Kenya Sevens winger Alvin Bufa Otieno ahead of the HSBC Sevens Los Angeles leg.